by the way. This is being recorded. But for those of you who don't know, this is just going to be kind of like a podcast style talk on kind of the Awakening Wizard class as a whole and the state of the class right now. A lot of people have been asking questions in my stream, like not just now, it happens all the time because people know me for playing the class, but recently, there's a lot of like, how's the class with all the changes? Is it good? Is it bad? What problems is it having? Is it worth re-rolling? Should I get off the class? Blah blah blah. And one of the most common questions, besides any of those, is usually they ask me, what does Cosini think? What does combat think? Because they know I know those guys, and I don't ask them like every patch what their opinion is on things. I usually talk about them with about other stuff. I'm not really like keeping up to date with them. But because that question gets asked so much, I figured why not just kind of get everyone together in one place. Just kind of talk about it so everyone can kind of, just get the information they've been trying to get. Yeah, so we're gonna start out with introductions, just in case anyone doesn't know who anyone is. You guys probably know me, but I'm Blue Sky 900. I'm one of the BDO content creators in the content creator program. I've been playing Awakening Wizard for about 5 years. It's really the only class I've like played intensively and gotten good at in this game. I've know how to play a couple others, but Wizard is definitely by far the one I'm the best at. So yeah, let's just go around the room. Candice, do you want to give yourself an introduction?
Yo, I'm Candice. I make BDO content, aka montages, every now and then. I haven't made one in a bit, but I'm more known for like mechanical shit. I've been on Wizard for about since I started the game in 2017. So yeah.
And Cosini, you want to give everyone a
Hello,
brief introduction?
I am Cosini, and I am a shit class enjoyer.
No, if that were true, you'd be playing Awakening Mystic.
Oh, you're right, you're right.
Do you want to let everyone know like what your experience is with the class, like what you're known for, or anything like that?
I make videos sometimes, mostly just PvP montages, but I haven't made one in a while because this game has no content.
Yeah, game is dead.
I wanted to make a new guide, but don't think I'm going to.
Yeah. And combat?
Hey, what's up? I'm Combat. I've been playing Awakening Wizard for about 6 years now. Most people know me towards the endgame PvP scene just because that's what I've been doing for the past couple years. And I also do a lot of AOS at the high level content, high elo.
And lastly, this is Piag, guys.
Since July of 2017, I've mained Wizard that entire duration. I've never played any other class through any extent of actual mastery. I've only played Wizard. The reason I'm here is because I manage the documentation of the Wizard Witch class Discord, as fucking nobody else gives enough of a shit about the class to actually write guides for it. So it's kind of like, I guess I'll do it, putting on the Thanos gauntlet and just writing it because that's it. I also manage stuff for Witch, but we're not here to talk about Witch. She stole elements of this edition from us. I fucked that word up. I've been scammed greatly, but that's why I'm here.
Cool. So for those of you who haven't heard yet, the way this is going to work is I have a bunch of pre-selected topics, and we're going to go through them one by one. Just kind of go around the room, do a little discussion about each. Try to not ramble too much and take too much of everyone's time who's watching, and you guys as well in the podcast, because I know some of you guys don't have the time to be here for hours and hours and hours. And then at the end, if we have time, I will look at chat, and if any of you guys have any questions about things that haven't been answered, we can take some questions from you guys, and then we'll wrap it up. But we'll start with the first topic, which is this. So the first topic, everyone, is what is the current state of Awakened Wizard in PvP? Like, do you think it's good or bad? Is it okay? And what are the problems that you think put it in that state, and or by extension, what makes it in a good state if you think it's in a good state.
This is all gonna be
I
negative.
can start us off. So in my opinion, the wizard class at the moment is probably at a low it hasn't seen in a decent amount of time. It's definitely been worse, but it's not super awesome right now. And honestly, the reason I think it's in that state has nothing to do with PA like directly nerfing or touching the class in any way. Like they didn't go out of their way to like nerf things or like change how the class works too much. It's mostly on the game recently just kind of changing around the class. And as a result of that, it's just kind of slowly not kept up with those changes that kind of make other classes stronger. So like for example, the movement is like a major thing that I'll talk about later for one of the other topics. But like the movement is like a major thing that is like causing issues, and so is the tankiness. The movement used to be okay with the slows, but now that the slows are gone, plus all the attack speed increases that everyone's gotten with the changes to how those affect skills, everyone's moving faster, and we can't slow them anymore on top of that. So it just kind of exacerbates the issue. But yeah, that's what I think. Cosini, you wanna give your answer on the topic?
I was gonna respond to what you said about it seeing a low it hasn't in a while. I don't think it's been this bad or like unfun to play since Suck Wizard was like omega broken.
Yeah, that's true.
It was so bad to play then.
Yeah, man, I tended to like rework shit. It actually feels awful. Like rework uncapped, only uncapped node wars. It actually felt terrible to play at.
I guess I have a little bit of a different opinion about like the state. I mean, realistically, I think right now the class is just in the worst spot it's ever been in the game. I don't really feel like Wizard has struggled this much to kind of find an identity, and be playable in all scenarios of PvP. Because, I mean, from my experience currently, it feels like this class really can only play in like a T1 scenario, and even then it can be really rough, especially if you're going against I mean, if a good like Digi dropped on a T1, I would struggle a bit more against their comp just because they have a lot more experience than the other players in T1s. But so it's different. So I was still on console after reboot, and Awakening Wizard felt really terrible then, but it still felt bearable in like uncapped scenarios because like everything was still uncapped. But from like what I've seen from like the current 50 mans and uncapped PvP, the class really just doesn't feel like it fits anywhere. It feels like it isn't doing enough damage and it's dying really fast with no mobility, and I think that's probably the biggest issue and of why it feels so terrible right now in the game.
I mean, the fact that it is like a very stationary class, not a lot of mobility, and then doesn't have any tank stats or any passive stats to give us tankiness is kind of crazy.
Yeah, and they took the DR off Awk Wiz, which is crazy.
Yeah,
That was one of the few things that justified Aqua Gel still being shit. It's like Aqua Gel is the most filler skill in the entire kit. It's more filler than fucking Water Sphere, because at least Water Sphere is a knockdown.
The tankiness being worse is something that actually has affected me so much. Some of you guys who've hung out in this stream have probably seen this, but my AOS spec basically changed entirely. I actually needed to swap to DR like accessories, DP accessories to make the class work in AOS for me. Like I had to put on like a little, not like full DP, but I have like a Sissles on.
Yeah.
And once I did that and I gave myself a little more DR, it felt good. And thankfully, honestly, it wouldn't be as good if everyone and their mother wasn't already running glass cannon. Because my damage is still good because everyone's running glass cannon. But if it wasn't that way, I don't know if the damage would be good with the Sissels on.
Blue, I have a mention towards the AOS thing, like with evasion DR, but I don't know if you'd rather just save that for the next topic.
We'll just save that for the next topic because we're about to get
Okay.
into that. Piag, did you have anything else you wanted to add? We didn't really give you the floor.
I mean, I try to say something that hasn't already been said. I think one of the things that, and this is kind of just, well, we can't do anything about it, but one of the things Perlibus has been doing over the years that I've noticed is, like you said earlier, they haven't really done anything in specific directly to Wizard that kind of shits on Wizard directly, but it's like, okay, so we're gonna lower the cap of slows, or yeah, they're lowering the cap of slows, and that directly affects us in the sense that, well, half of our kit relies on us slowing the enemy because, like you said, we don't have the mobility to actually play the fucking game. And it's like, okay, so I'm gonna have less slow capacity in my kit. They gutted the damage on the pre-awakening skills, which I could sometimes use if I was on a rock or something. Now they just don't do any damage. They removed our slow in the awakening kit. They reduced the damage on SA damage reduction because the SA damage reduction on Awakening Wizard actually ranged between 15 to 25% depending on the skill you were using, and they just nuked all that. It's all 10% now, which is a massive fucking reduction to the actual amount of tankiness we had, little that we did have anyways, because what are you gonna do? Offensively cast protected area? No, you die in the cast. It's like, well, okay, I guess I can't play the game anymore because anytime I invest in offense, I die because I'm a glass cannon. Anytime I invest in defense, I can't kill anyone because I have no AP. So it's like, ugh.
Yeah, and
Just
when you
sucks.
look at the glass cannon stuff, other classes that run glass cannon that are squishy, they get away with it because they have
have
the
more
mobility
iframes.
to back it up, or the iframe, either or.
Or they're a Zerker and they're a mega tanky.
Or they're a Zerker. Yep.
But yeah, so that's the first topic. The next thing we're gonna get into is DR versus evasion. This is something that's asked a lot. Like almost every time, it's the first question people ask when they're asking for help with gear with Wizard. Which is better now, or are they about the same? This time, let's start it off with combat. What do you think?
Yeah, so I've actually played around in like the recent patch after this spec evasion removal. So I wanted to try and build evasion a little bit because I saw it was working for Cosini. As it turns out, anyone with gears will just delete you, so it doesn't really matter. I mean, I feel like evasion. So the evasion the argument I think is still the same as it's always been for the most part. I think if you're an evasion class and you're fighting players with less gear than you, especially now with DR being so heavy in the meta, I feel like you can get away with being evasion a lot more than you can be DR. Just because a lot of players won't be able to like full accuracy, full accu. And so I think it's good. The damage is like the damage loss is noticeable to me, especially now where like it really feels like I'm struggling at like 330. I'm like 330 sheet AP, and then my hidden AP in total is like somewhere around like 820. And even then, it still feels like I'm struggling to kill players on DR. And then when I swap to evasion, it felt a lot worse, even though I was surviving a lot more. Personally, I think if you're going more towards the end game content route, you're looking for end game PvP. Like the only guild you want to fight is either Cho or Digi, or even both. I mean, there's a lot of like somehow there's still a lot of guilds that are up and coming at the moment in strength. Soaked being one of them. Corrupt is still holding in on there, and then like I don't know, maybe as like the PvP scene starts to dwindle and people just start to come together more, we'll see other guilds start to come up. But I think at endgame, I think the argument for me is always going to be DR. I've been DR on Awakening Caster pretty much the like entirety of my career. So I think that's just my opinion. I would rather go DR if you're trying to do damage, go DR. If you're trying to survive more and stay in fights longer, go evasion.
Cool. I agree with a lot of that, and that's mostly because we've kind of always have run the same build for the most part. Me in combat, I've been DR basically the entire time I've played Wizard. Even before all of the changes recently, I was still DR, even though evasion was probably the more popular one. But I just had the opinion that I like DR better, one, because the more damage, and number two, I felt like it's like synergized better with Wizard's kit because of the DR boosted super armor we had. But as for in its current state, like in the current state of the game, between DR and evasion, if I'm just strictly looking at them as like tanky stats and like how survivable you are, I think they're about the same, to be honest. Like they're both really strong. I think evasion probably still is the tankier stat, but the difference isn't as insane as it used to be. Like it's pretty close. Honestly, you could do either one if you're looking for tankiness. But DR will give you more damage, so and because that's just kind of a little bit of a bias on mine because I've just enjoyed DR and I have had the idea that it just synergizes better with Wizard's kit. I think DR probably has the slight edge for me, in my opinion.
I want to say something on this too. So when they did the changes, so I've been evasion since like I rolled wizard, so it's been like 4 years. So I tried DR and I did like a 720 DR build before they removed Spec Eva, and it felt better than Eva after the changes. And then they nuked Spec Eva, and no matter how much DR I put on, you just evaporate. Like it was awful. So I swapped back to evasion, and the same thing happens. So like I don't even know what the hell you do anymore. It's probably better to just go glass and send it and just hope you get kills before you die. Like it's that bad. They got rid of all the tankiness potential that you could have, because before, when I was evasion, like you could fight an army of gearlets and you just would never die because they just can't hit you, right? And you had the DR super armor under the evasion, so it was powerful. But now, like you can't take off any AP to wear evasion because you just hit like a noodle. So it's impossible. And you don't do any damage with evasion unless you have 5 pen debos, right? So it's like, okay, so be a gear lord or just be DR and accept that you're gonna die.
But to kind of add to that concept of having 5 Pandebos, if you're running 5 Pandebos, you're not in an evasion set in the first place, because anything that would substantiate an evasion gear set would have to include something like a Sissel or a Centaur or literally
Yeah.
anything like that. So it's like you're not even running the 5 Pandebo anyways, because you can't.
So you can be 3 or 9 with a Centaur with 5, but like
Yeah, no,
you're not
I know
tanky
you can,
anymore.
but
Yeah,
it's the kind
you're
of
not
it
tanky
defeats the
anymore.
purpose.
It does.
My take on the Evasion DR thing is I've almost felt for the longest time that it kind of doesn't matter, in the sense that you go one way and it's like, okay, I do less damage and I'm not killing anyone, and then I go DR, it's like I do slightly more damage but I'm still not killing anyone, because the class either doesn't have the multipliers on its skills to kill people, or it doesn't have the CCs on the right skills at the right time within time frame you'd need to actually kill people. Because like, you're not like a Suck Lon hitting people with a knockdown and then just doing the funny spin and then killing all of them, right? You're a wizard, and I don't really know how to express it other than you're a wizard. You're not here to nuke the entire ball. You're here to like fucking, I don't know, class identity crisis is just like the role of wizard, I guess. You don't really know what you're supposed to do. It's just, I guess I'll throw a bullet into that ball.
But yeah, Candice, what do you think of DR versus evasion?
I mean, I've been DR for like a very long time. I was a very big gearlet when I was still evasion. I mean, I don't know, honestly. Like, I can speak on DR in the fact that I don't feel tanky, I don't do damage. Everyone feels way tankier. It just feels awful, but evasion I don't really have any experience with. I will say, like, when it comes to like how tankiness felt and like how the class felt, I felt the absolute best pre-land of Morning Light, and I think that's like where everything started going downhill. With
I
like
could see that, yeah, because you got the Whooms and
Yeah.
the bitterness and all that. Just
it felt
almost
like the
no
best
cost
all,
defense
like, all around.
increase.
Like all
Like-
around, everything just felt super nice pre-land of Morning Light. You felt tanky, you felt fucking like you did a lot of damage. You could still be like a dive bomb player. Classes weren't all perma SA 24/7 like they are now. So you could actually still catch people. It was actually like probably the best time for tankiness and damage split, in my opinion.
We can move on to the next topic. Let me grab it real quick. Oh god, this is actually really long. And I don't know if this is gonna all fit. I will do my best, guys.
Yeah, that's a good point. This guy says, I don't know how to pronounce that. C squared. Yeah, utility doesn't matter because everyone's perma SA, and the slows we had to combat the perma SA don't exist anymore because they got nuked. So
And we got an amazing skill in replacement.
yes,
So
the,
good.
the good old shift Q, the
Holy shit, Torrential Cascade. Oh my god.
I'm going to wish a torrential
Ariana, my
cascade on
beloved.
PA headquarters because they live in.
Torrential Cascade.
Yeah, the name just sounds so much cooler than what it actually does.
I don't know, man.
Bro,
R.I.P.
oh,
Retard
that's,
Nando, my goat.
Yes, I don't know if y'all noticed, but this new skill we got is a straight rip from mobile. Like it
All right.
Oh, yeah.
So
is. It actually is.
the next topic we're gonna go over is a bit of a long sentence, but it is well known that Awakening Wizard, yes, we know Witch exists too, which probably shares a lot of these issues that we're probably about to talk about. But it's one of the most immobile classes in the game. And in a game where you have classes that have extremely high movement and insane damage, extremely high movement and just as much damage in AoE as we do, should Awakening Wizard get mobility? If yes, how would you like to see that mobility implemented? And if not, why should it stay how it is? Let's start with Cosini this time.
Okay. So I think there's two ways to look at this. If they want the class to be as squishy as it is right now, then yes, it needs movement. If they don't want to give it movement, then they need to make it a lot tankier. And they also need to give it damage, but that's like another thing. If they want to keep it how it is, then I'm just going to say it. We need to get split TP, and we need to get the elementalization change that Witch got. And we also need barrage movement to not be on the fucking skill, because it's so
True.
bad. And it just randomly sends you forward when you don't want it to. And they also should let you elementalization from your staff out.
Ooh.
That would be a big one.
I like
That would be
So I
really
have
helpful.
I have a very long list of ways I would like the mobility to be changed, and I've documented it. Anyone that's like looked at the forums and gone
I
to the
saw
feedback
that.
tab has seen me fucking mauling about this for at least since the reworks came out. I was like, this sucks. Did you know that this sucks? By the way, this sucks. So, quick rundown of what I want. You know how Wusa moves? She has those funny little side dashes. Yeah, just give those to us. I could use those real quick. It was funny. I was in Armin's stream the other day, and he was like, "Yo, for all the wizards in our chat, would you rather have your ultimate teleport split into 3 little dashes, or keep ultimate teleport and get split teleport?" And I actually said, I'll prefer to keep my normal teleport and then have ultimate teleport split into 3, because then you have the agency to decide, oh, do you want to spend all 3 of my dashes, or do I just want to go a little bit forward? That kind of positioning is something we do not have the choice to do. It's either you commit to both teleports, just full send, or you just don't move at all because they gutted magical evasion, and elementalization does not exist. So, yeah, we need some actual movement, kind of like what Wusa has. Maybe it doesn't need to be the perma iframe bullshit that Wusa has, but nonetheless, iframes that can be used relatively frequently. And also, what Cosini said, we need the elementalization from the staff. That would be awesome. Also, I want magical evasion to auto swap you to the awakening stance when you use it from the staff, because
True.
staff magical evasion blows. It's so bad.
It's so bad.
Yeah.
Wait, did you guys know that one's still fast?
Oh yeah, it is, but it still sucks. It
It's
still sucks.
bad, but it's fast.
It's so fast.
Um, So for me, I mean, anyone who's watched my stream has definitely heard me say this like 1,000,001 times. The class has always been lacking mobility. It's been not as big of an issue as it has been recently with these changes, which we've kind of alluded to that and mentioned that a few times so far. But yeah, I totally think we need more mobility. And how I would like it implemented, I mean, first of all, the elementalization change Witch got We've literally been crying about that since the skill got added to the game. And why does just Witch get it? Makes like no sense to me. So hey, can we get that too? You know, that would be nice. Honestly, just that would make it like bearable, in my opinion. I think
think
it
it
should
would.
go beyond that. I do think we should get more. If we don't get split TP, you should at least make magical evasion an iframe or something like that. Maybe give it charges, kind of like how you have like a flow, like you know, like how only one I can think of because I've played the class is like Valk has 3 of shield chases, right? Maybe we
Yeah.
get like 3 magical evasions or something. I don't know, something like that. Something to help us like stay protected with movement.
Yeah, that was the kind of idea I was having with like
and-
splitting up teleport, right?
But
I mean,
yeah, so
I
like
say
split
obviously we
either
guys
split
don't-
Someone had the idea.
split TP on top of all that would probably make it feel fine as well. But like one of the biggest things, like, or counter arguments that I've heard for why Wizard shouldn't get this, which I honestly I've been hearing it less and less as the game is progressing, because I think people are starting to realize and see like, oh wait, all these other classes are kind of doing the things that we said Wizard shouldn't be allowed to do because of the other things they can do, right? And usually the responses I get is, oh, well, Wizard has massive AoE and it has heals and other utility things that help the team. And that's why it can't have insane mobility, because then it'll just do everything well. And I'm just like, now, I don't hear that anymore. People have stopped using that as an excuse, and it's true, because you look at other classes like, you know, Drak, Wusa, Mayu, that are like moving 10 times as fast as we are, with just as much damage and AoE, and then some of them even have healing on top of it and PA. It's just like, the only difference is they don't, you know, buff 10 people at once with it, I guess, which is a difference that does make ours a little bit more beneficial, but I don't think it's any reason to not give us the mobility, you know?
So, one thing I would add to that I feel like a lot of people don't take into account, which, to be fair, why would they take this into account if they don't know shit about the class and don't care to learn about it? Because who cares about Awakening Wizard except us 5 dudes molding about it? But, regardless of that point, if they suddenly give Awakening Wizard fucking ninja mobility, you know what they didn't just give him? Instant spells. I am not, by virtue of being able to move faster, instantly casting Bolide and KDing an entire ball of players. My spells are not becoming faster because I am capable of moving more. I still have to commit to the long-ass animation of me doing Aqua Jail just so I'm staying in SA. My Chilling Wave still is slow as hell even after they changed it. Like, Cataclysm is still an animation I have to commit to. The only cancel we have in the kit is fucking Aqua Jail, and maybe Element Civilization if you count the thingy with canceling Element and Chilling Wave, but like, who cares about that? My skills are not faster because I can move more. That is my ultimate counter argument to all of the, oh, but you have utility. Yeah, that doesn't fix the problem that I'm slow.
Utility that, by the way, the Giga Whale Tendon heals as much as our heal. They buff
It
it.
just doesn't.
The
speak
heals
on, like-
literally tone that.
Yeah. To speak on like mobility and shit, as like a person who comes more from like small scale and 1v1 kind of background, like when it comes to Wizard right now, pre them nerfing ME, it honestly felt okay. I could kite a lot of like classes.
By the way, for those of
Except for,
you
like,
who
really bad
don't
triggers.
know, ME is magical evasion. That's
Yeah.
what he's talking about.
Yeah, shift directional. Except for forward.
When it was super fast, I could literally just like dash away from a striker. It was like
Yeah,
I
it
actually
felt
Nice,
felt
that
like,
was so
okay.
good.
Yeah, it felt super nice in like 1v1s and shit like that. But like with the removal of ME, how slow we are in general versus like most extremely fast classes, like have fun getting away from a Drak.
Yep.
Like not having mobility and on top of not having slows, it just feels absolutely awful now.
You know what I think's
Like, I can't
crazy? We
say it's
can't
really
even
good.
run away from a Suck Nova because the fucking minions still hit stagger you out of it.
Yeah, that's another thing that's like a huge issue is the ME staggers. Like if you dash and you like hold down the key for half a second and get hit staggered, you'll cast it again.
Yeah, and then
And
it's
you're
just over.
instantly unprotected and CC'd.
So what do you think we should get though? Like, second part of the question,
mean,
what do you think we should, how would
yeah.
you like to fix it, in your opinion?
In the current state, because I what is it? I made my little cue card things. what was it, pre the ME change. Talking more about pre the ME change. But to fix it, I would say something like split TP. Obviously, the class needs more damage. The damage is just not there now.
It's
That's
so bad.
personally the
Yeah.
first thing I would do. Because as a like turret S class, we need to be able to like you should be able to kill someone standing if you can't move to hit them. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Right, because they ran into your range.
Exactly. Like our range is basically our only thing that we have. But to change it, I would say give it more damage, make elementalization only iframe, like iframe into SA, obviously, and then lower the CD, like how Witch got. And then split TP, I mean, it can be talked about, but I think split TP would be fine.
And combat, you never really given your opinion on this yet. What do you think?
Yeah, I think my opinion just differs just a tiny bit. Like, I don't think the class needs split TP. I think that's just like a really good succession caster identity. While yeah, like it would be nice. I feel like there's other ways to make Awakening caster better without just like kind of doing like I don't know, like not to sound like rude, but like not thinking about it and just like, oh, give them a split TP, because I feel like especially with like a company like PA, like I feel like they're just gonna give us that and be like, oh, this class is fine, like let's not look at it for another 4 years.
Yeah.
Like I feel like that's a really bad route. Like I think we should have Witch's elementalization. I think like once again that should have been the elementalization we got on reboot. Like it's insane that it took 4 years to get here, but like I mean at least one of us got it, right guys?
Yeah.
I'd rather see magical evasion become an iframe. Obviously not like a Sork iframe, but just like be an iframe. I think that's like that would be like a huge buff.
Fun fact: did you know that it's an iframe on mobile?
Screw mobile, dude. Those guys just
No, I
suck.
mean, yeah, but that's always a funny comparison. It's just like,
They should
hey,
give us that water
Yeah.
skill on
Oh,
mobile.
Drew.
Yeah, the
Well,
bubble and
actually,
move
hang
around.
on. Which one?
Sorry to interrupt you though, combat. Keep going though.
Oh no, it's
Yeah.
fine. I think there's too many. Like I said, so I think just giving us magical evasion iframe and then the elementalization changes will be a huge buff. That I mean, I feel like if you're a good wizard player, especially an awakening wizard player, it's going to be really easy to adjust to and like actually utilize without like having the need for split TP. Obviously, there's more things that need to go into it. Like we need a damage boost, like badly. Like I don't know what has happened in the last 6 months, but comparably on uncapped and like because like RBF's like really my only example right now because uncapped content as it is isn't good. Not like I'd show up anyways. I know how bad my class is in RBF now, so. But like I went from like pretty much it would be Hellfire, Bolide, Magma Bomb, and I could kill like 4 or 5 players. To I rotate Hellfire, Bolide, Magma Bomb, Barrage, Cataclysm into an elementalization and get like a first tick off Chilling Wave. And I've killed 1 player and 4 players who, like quite frankly, are probably not that geared, like as compared to the higher end, are just standing up with 20% of their HP still. And that just seems ridiculous to me. That my class has like no like I'm not committed, right? Like as soon as I TP, like I'm committed to a spot for 7 seconds, unless obviously I burn my 3-minute cooldown. Archmage TP to get away, but that's like another skill that's an issue to me. I don't think that skill should cost mana. That thing should cost stamina. Like the fact that it costs mana absolutely
it'd be like
deletes the fact because like as we get into the next topic of Mana Shield really hard screws over that skill a lot of the times,
It's
especially
really
in large scale.
expensive. It's a very
Like,
expensive teleport.
Yeah, like that's the issue, and it's on a 3-minute cooldown. And I think another issue is I don't think Awakening casters TPs are long enough. I would like to see them be a little bit longer.
You mean
Add like an extra.
movement, like distance? You mean?
Yeah, I think the
Oh.
distance needs to go up by like 5 or 6 meters.
That Awakened Wizard's teleport now is the exact same length as a striker dash.
It's literally the
I
same.
did not
it's
know
the-
that. She's
It's it's the same length as shift. No, I think it's is it WRMB WE on Drak. It's like the same. It's like the same distance, except ours isn't a float. Like we're not gonna CC 4 players double TPing versus a Drak will. Like I mean, like even like no, like I don't know, like there's a lot of classes right now that like can instantly catch up to you after mass TPing and then double TPing. There's just and then like you can't do anything after that,
the
especially
only
if it's a
way
grab
to like
class.
break anyone's legs with teleport right now is if they don't look at their minimap, right? Because the
Yeah, no,
higher
that's the
skill
only way.
wizards will mouse move their teleport, which means they can't use the animation to see which way you're facing, right? Because you could go in any direction. But
Mm-hmm.
if they look at their minimap, which is what any good player will do, it doesn't matter. They'll just turn the camera towards where you went and then go after you. But yeah.
No, exactly. So I mean, obviously, I have a couple notes on here, like that maybe like I don't know how good of a change this would be, or like anything, but like just to kind of like spitball some things that like I was kind of thinking about when I thought of caster mobility is maybe a TP like TP cooldown gets reduced by a bit by like 2 seconds. Like I know that would affect suck a lot, which is another argument that I have on here as to why Awakening Caster just isn't really in as good of a spot as I'd want it to be. And then to give us something like how Corsair has, like you know how Corsair has a few skills that just give her 50% grab res because it's literally the only thing that counters the class. And just like us, our biggest counter is getting grabbed. I really think we should also get like the 50% grab res passive,
They're-
like
they
at
removed
least
that.
get something.
Yeah, they removed that now. They don't get that anymore.
It's 50% damage reduction on.
They just
Corsair
get a
now.
lot of DR when they're
Oh,
in
the DR?
Mermaid form. Yeah.
Should give us the man. I want the DR and the grab res. No, I want the DR and the grab res, bro. We need it. We're down bad.
I mean, honestly, like with ME too, like
Mhm.
you could make it to where it's basically like lawn dashes, but I don't know. You know what I mean? How it's like iframe.
Oh,
and then
yeah.
On cooldown, while it's on cooldown, it's SA.
Yeah.
Actually,
That's how Sage is too in Succession.
I feel like that'd be a good buff.
Yeah, that could be an option. All right, but let's keep on moving on. So the next topic, definitely isn't as all encompassing that the ones so far have been, but the topic is, do you think Magic Shield needs a rework? What would you like to see changed? Real quick before we get into it, just in case anyone's watching doesn't really play Wizard, if you don't know what Magic Shield does, I'm just gonna you can either pause the video or Google it real quick, but I'm gonna tell you. Magical Shield is a skill which is on it's about a minute cooldown, I believe, like 70 seconds or something like that, and it reduces all damage that we take by, was it 30%, I think, right?
25%.
25%. So we take a straight up flat 25% reduced damage across the board while it's active. But in exchange for that, any damage it reduces is subtracted from our mana pool instead. So it can tank our mana pretty hard, which is a detriment. And it's a neat trade-off. I don't think it's like a horrible like idea. It's kind of cool that there's a skill has a trade-off like that, but it is kind of punishing in the current state, which is what kind of part of the reason why this question is in this whole discussion. And then the other thing it does is it gives all resistances plus 30% for the duration of the skill, which basically makes us res capped in PvP as long as the skill is active, which is really good. Honestly, it's pretty strong. But that's what the skill does. But we'll get into it. So I can start us off. So, in my opinion, I don't think Magic Shield needs like a massive rework. Like I said before when I was kind of just describing the skill so that everyone who's watching kind of understands the skill and what we're talking about and why we're talking about it. I I just think the mana is a bit oppressive. It's definitely been better with the tankier meta, and that's not because, you know, you're still losing the same amount of mana because health bars are still health bars, right? If anything, the bigger health bars are a bigger drain on our mana because now we can take more damage before dying, which means our mana pool covers less of our health than it used to. But the reason why it's been better with the tankier is because we just die slower, which means our potions have more time to like try to keep up with the mana drain that's happening from getting hit. But I do think the skill needs to have, we either need higher base mana, which honestly at this point in the game, I'm gonna be real, for any class, does your resource fucking mean anything? Does it mean anything anymore? I feel like the only resource that really seems to mean anything at this point in the game for most classes, like I say 90% of the classes in this game, is your stamina. That's like the big resource that everyone cares about. Mana, SP, MP, whatever the hell your resource is called, it really is like a nothing burger. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't limit you with how the potion system is in the game. So honestly, I see no reason why they can't just give us more base mana, or like,
Yeah, I like that idea.
reduce how much magic shield like drains our mana when we take damage. I just think they need to look at that. And another change that really bugs me, this isn't too much of an issue. This is kind of like a smaller thing compared to what I just said. But can we please make the cooldown like the same as speed spell? Because for those of you who don't know, Wizard's pre-buffs for like buffing itself before it dives in for a fight is speed spell into magic shield, because magic shield flows off of speed spell, but they're not the same cooldown. Their cooldown is off by about, what is it, like 10 seconds or
10
something?
seconds.
Yeah. So if you're not like paying attention, which like, yeah, I try to pay attention to the cooldowns in a fight, right? You have to do that whenever you're fighting. But sometimes I'll just be like, oh, I see speed spell up, and I'll press it, and then I'll go to magic shield automatically because it's muscle memory, and then it doesn't happen. I'm like, oh, well, now they're desynced even more than they were before. And it's just a little bit of an irritating thing that I think they could probably remedy. I don't think making them the same cooldown would be that much of a big deal.
So I would like to go next personally, if I would be so.
Yeah, sure, go for it.
I have a bit of a different approach to this, and I did post this in the forum post that I made. But my idea was, first of all, still make the mana pools bigger, just on principle, because it's not big enough. But my change would be different. Instead of having it do what it does currently, I would have it give you the 25% damage reduction flat as a toggle at the expense of reserving 60% of your total mana, meaning you cannot use that 60%. It is taken up permanently for the duration of it being toggled. Now, the reason I think that's a good trade-off is because the current issue we have with Magical Evasion is when you take a shit ton of damage, when Magical Evasion performs its purpose in reducing the damage you take, is you run out of mana entirely. You just don't have any, right? So you stand up, you go try to use literally any skill to protect yourself, and you can't because you have no mana. Or, like, your potion ticks at the right moment, and then you can use one skill, but because you have such low health by that time, it doesn't matter, and you just die anyways. So the way this kind of helps fix the problem is, let's say we get our mana bumped to a 2000 base, right? Which I think currently it's like 1600 or so, so it wouldn't be really that big of a bump, but let's say it's bumped to like 2000, well, that would leave us with around about 800 mana if it's a 60% reservation to mess around with, right? And I think that's a lot more fair, because for when we are getting comboed, we stand up and have that 800 mana instead of having literally none. But you still have to account for the fact that that is still like 1200 mana being cut off your mana bar, because then, for instance, ultimate, what is it called? Fucking Arc Wizardry Teleport, that costs 500 mana. Well, that's the majority of your mana pool left, right? And so you'd still have to account for the fact that you don't have 2000 mana, you have 800, right? It would be something to think about. Like, even something like Lava Field costs 200 mana. We still have these spells that actually take a relevant amount of mana away from our reserve, And I think that would be a more intelligent way of reworking the skill rather than just giving us more mana and expecting that to fix the problem, because we still have bigger health pools, right? And so we have more mana, but that just means we bottom out with slightly higher health, right?
Yeah. I mean,
Problem
I
is
think that
still
I
there.
think the toggling skill is a really good idea. Not just because I think it's an interesting idea is a better way to put it, just because that's never really been done in the game, is like a toggleable skill.
The way I would change it is, so you mentioned the cooldown, I would have it just be a straight 10-second cooldown essay on cast skill that toggles the thing. And the reason, again, that matters is because, well, now you have significantly less mana, so then, hey, you have a more intentional playstyle, where it's like, okay, I'm going to commit to having 800 cap mana instead of 2000, so I have to think about what spells I'm using more, because, again, for instance, even something like Hellfire Bolide Magma costs like 500 mana to cast, right? And so it's like, that's the majority of your mana pool when you only have 800 mana. So you get the benefit, but you have to think about it, right? You have to consider, do I actually want to benefit from this at the time I'm benefiting from it? Also, on an aside, you mentioned Speed Spell. I think Speed Spell should just not exist. Hear me out, all right? Let me cook. This is a hot take. I think Speed Spell should not exist because it is honestly something that is used against us as an argument to not buff us that cripples us. Because think about it. For the duration that we have to suffer Speed Spell not being up, we cannot play the game. If you don't have Speed Spell, you're just fucked. And Speed Spell has a 20-second downtime, and it's unprotected, and it's a staff skill. And I say it's a staff skill so as to say that you have to hotkey it, right? And so, in the context and the consideration of that, if they just made all of our skills 20% faster, as if we always had Speed Spell on, and then just removed Speed Spell from the kit, I would not complain at all. I would not care. Because that would just fix that problem. We wouldn't have to think about it anymore. Like, it wouldn't be, oh, is my Speed Spell up or not? And it wouldn't make us faster on principle either, because we wouldn't get the benefit of being like add-ons wouldn't be multiplicatively faster or anything, because we still have add-ons when we're using Speed Spell. It's still the cumulative 30%. So we would just be the normal 10% faster, right? So that's what I would do to Speed Spell. If you insist on having Speed Spell exist, still do what I suggest, but only make it apply to allies, right? Because the fact we are chained to that skill pisses me off to no end. It has no reason to exist but to buff teammates. We have to use it as a wizard ourselves. Half the time, I don't even care if there are people around it when I use it, because I have to have it active to be able to actually fight people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get it.
So that's what I would do with Speed Spell.
Yeah, Combat, do you want to go next? You kind of made it seem like you
Yes,
wanted to say
man.
something.
I wouldn't mind going next. I agree with a lot of what Piag's talking about in terms of like decisions based on like not actually having the skills be a like clickable, but like how they used to, like how they did Sork's old production of like whatever their self buff was that gave them like extra DR, and how they just like made it as like a passive for them to like always have up. I think that would be good. I don't think speed spell matters anymore. I mean, I know that I'll get into the mana shield in a second, just to like continue off the topic. But meta shield or not meta, speed spell isn't necessary anymore. And any endgame PvP and large scale PvP at the moment, and even in small scale, you'll see it where like if people want to get really sweaty, a shot is getting introduced into every single fight, and that is the buff class. Like I mean, that is the class that gives you all the buffs. So it just shouldn't exist in an entirety. It should just be automatic. Like having to play for that cooldown a lot of the times and it being so noticeable when you don't have it up, I think is a really unhealthy aspect for the class. But getting into our Magic Shield, I think the issue with Magic Shield now is the HP pool. Obviously, there's ways to counteract that, and that is to just give us and I'm being real, like a base of 5,000 mana. Like that's what it would have to be. to make this skill not feel like I'm killing myself while also trying to live by pressing it. Because what it does is just way too. It's just way too good to not be pressing. And at the current state of the game, in any form of PvP, besides like 1v1, if you I always call it mind focus. I'm not entirely sure if that is the correct
Oh,
artifact
that's
set.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's it.
It is called mind focus. Okay, yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
All right, yeah. So if I'm not running mind focus, it feels like I'm not allowed to play the game on Awakening Caster, considering what the class is like being a frontline melee class. I'm taking a lot of damage. And if I'm not running that light sunset, I might as well not be playing the class if I have magic shield up. So I think like a base increase of mana would be really good. I don't think there's any issues with it, like beside like outside of like what it gives. I think the res buff is good. It's needed. I think the damage reduction is good. Like it's like that is very needed. And even with it up, it still just feels like I get deleted. But I feel like the skill worked really well like 5 years ago when I was running around with 4k HP instead of now I'm running around with like 11k. So there's a lot more damage to be taken overall that has just been getting boosted by the fact that our HP pool has slowly been getting higher and higher as the years have gone by. I mean, if you do the math, like our HP pool has gone up by almost 2k HP a year, like based off that ratio, which is insane. So like just reworking it somehow around that, like I'm not entirely sure how the rework would be. I think the best course of action is to just give us an like a 5k like mana pool, but that also would have to bring the discussion of like mana pots and things like that. Like we would at that point really struggle to like recover getting our mana back without using
Well, mana
whatever
absorb
the
does give a
mana
percentage
absorb.
amount.
Yeah, mana
But,
absorb
yeah.
and rain of fire are magna skill.
Yeah, that one's
without
really
using-
big too.
Yeah, no, like without using those skills, like we would really struggle to get our mana
And
back.
the other funny thing about Rain of Fire is if you raise the max mana to 5,000, Rain of Fire wouldn't cap your mana anymore. It wouldn't provide enough mana to fill your mana anymore, which is kind of crazy. And
Yeah.
like you were saying about the mana pots, I think that would put a disproportionate value on the mana potion for wizards specifically if you chose to just make the mana pool 50 billion and just say, okay, I have all of the mana now. And so that's kind of why I suggested what I suggested instead, because I feel like that's not really a solution. It just adds a different problem. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So I would change it in the way I said personally, but
What if they just buff the mana that you get back from your skills? Like some of the skills give mana, but it's like nothing.
yeah, but that again, if you buff the mana you get from your skills, we can't use that because the time we're benefiting from Magical Shield is when we're on the floor.
Fair enough.
What am I gonna do? Hit him when I'm on the floor? Yeah, my summon's gonna hit them, give me 50 mana back. Huge.
Yo, Marg channels mana into you.
So,
Um.
but that wouldn't work either because he'd be dead. So
So I guess getting onto the topic of like mana really quick with Magic Shield, like how would you feel if like our ebuff mana recovery just became like a passive? And what
just
it
during
did
ebuff?
in what way?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
like we get like what's like I have to go to the skill.
I know what you're
really quick.
talking about. I know what you're talking about.
Mhm.
But
Recovering 80 MP when using the skill with your God or Sphere.
Yeah, recovers
Yeah,
80
that
MP
would-
when using skill with their not that one.
that'd be
But recovers
cool.
700 MP on the skill, and then I know you get increased mana recovery while you buffed.
Yeah, you do. That's the recovery and use of the skill. But I mean, I guess what I'd ask is, what do you mean by making it a passive? Just like, because I think that just kind of looped back to the whole making the mana pool bigger kind of thing.
Yeah, I guess it does. I don't really know. Like that's the thing. Like I don't really know a good way to keep it as like the skill it is now without entirely reworking it. Which in reality, I think the skill probably at this point in time does just need a full rework. I don't think there's a healthy way of balancing it that can make it to where it's more viable and it doesn't feel like I'm having to crutch off different things to make one skill work because it's so necessary for my kit.
Yeah.
So yes, that's why I suggest what I do.
Yeah.
The other thing is, if we go again, this dream realm where Pearl Abyss suddenly starts listening to the wizard player feedback and starts implementing these changes, right? Hypothetically, if we go through the route that I suggest, not only would it be a choice to use Magical Shield because you don't int all of your mana by getting hit by one archer skill, it would be actually available when you respawn, because I had suggested the cooldown be 10 seconds on a toggle, right? So when you die and the skill ends and you used it before you died and you respawn and it's still on cooldown, that wouldn't happen anymore because the cooldown would be 10 seconds. Or maybe you'd have to wait like 4 seconds and then you can use it again, right? That would in theory be better.
Cosini, what do you think?
I mean, I mostly agree. I actually think Piag's idea is pretty good, but I don't see them doing that because it's PA.
Right, it's
yeah.
just the dream realm,
Yeah,
right? When
it's
they
the
suddenly
dream
start
realm.
thinking.
I feel like the only thing that they'd actually do is buff our mana, but to be honest, I
'cause
don't
they're
know.
lazy.
They would just give us the witch thing, where you get mana with the pet out. Honestly, that's what they would probably do.
Yeah, that is exactly what they do, but that's just such a fucking cop out, man.
It is.
And
it is.
then not only is that a cop out, that further entrenches us in having to use mind focus because, like Combat had said, our health bars are so much larger now that even with the mind focus itself, it still doesn't save you. So it just
Yeah,
it
I
further
actually can't ever
exacerbates the
take it off.
problem.
Even in uncapped, it feels really hard to play without mind focus. Like I've tried other sets, but it's just terrible.
Well, I mean, and yeah, I think you can get away with certain things without mind focus if you have enough DR currently, but I mean, it's still, people have asked me, like, can you not run it? I'm like, yeah, if you have enough DR, you could get away without it, but it's still very useful to have. But yeah, Candice, you want to wrap this topic up?
I mean, personally, when I started PvPing, I basically never used a mana shield because it was so ingrained in my head in 1v1 because I didn't want to have like the extra resistances against players because I hate resistances. So I mean, I like Piag's idea. I can't really talk about much.
All right, that's fair enough.
The skill.
I get that. But yeah, then we can move on to the next one. The next topic is, grab it real quick. I wanted to talk about Mainhand with Awakening Wizard.
Oh man.
So, for those of you who don't know, the main reason for this topic, or let me read the topic first, actually. So let's talk about Mainhand. Do you think it is strong or weak, and what would you like to see change for Mainhand, if anything? And then there's, suggestions and parentheses there of things we could talk about. But just a brief overview for those of you who don't know about Awakening Wizard Mainhand. Awakening Wizard Mainhand for the longest time has had, I like to call it an oversight on PA's part. But basically, everyone knows that skills have absolutes and just their normal, like 1 through 4 or 5 or however many levels the skill has, right? So until the massive changes that have been happening over the last like month and a half, Awakening Wizard's main hand has actually had more damage if you don't use the absolute version. There was basically what I'm pretty sure was just an oversight that's been in, it's been on the main hand skill tree for years, which is the absolute versions of most of our main hand skills had damage reduction on it, which is normal. Like in PvP, you get reduced damage. That's just a normal thing with BDO, right? But the non-absolute versions had no PvP damage reduction on them, which meant anytime you were running PvP, you would unlevel your skills, and that would increase the damage of them. which would just make main hand a little bit more viable. And the damage, by the way, that increased damage was like still pretty negligible for the most part. It still didn't really hurt that much, but at least it kind of helped it out a little bit. We just kind of assumed PA let us have that because they knew, or at least I assumed PA let us have that because they knew it was a problem, and they just felt like, oh, this gives them something, right? But then they fixed it with the recent updates. Now all of our skills have damage reduction, and now you run your absolutes like every other class. So they clearly knew it was an issue, and they, for whatever reason, decided it needed to be fixed now. So I just kind of want to talk about Mainhand and see, like, what do you guys think? Is it fine? Do we not need Mainhand? Should we have Mainhand? Like that kind of thing. But Candice, do you want to start us off?
I do. I have a lot to say about fucking Mainhand skills. So, to start off, I think it is so stupid that we have the system with FBE and residual lighting, FBE being Fireball Explosion, where you have to use Fireball, and we don't get like how Suck Wizard has, where we have this buff
Yeah, that
where
you
we
can
have to use
consume.
Fireball before, or we have to use Lightning before. We should have instant Fireball Explosion. That, and in my opinion, I think that should just be a class thing, not a Succession or Awakening thing. And then we should have, what is it, just normal Hotbar Residual. And then on top of that, a couple things. These skills hit like noodles. They're terrible for the most part. But the biggest thing is the fact that Meteor and Absolute Meteor is still just frontal guard, but downspec is essay. Like, why is that even a thing? Like, I understand that it's a lot longer of a cooldown, but I would 1,000% take the longer cooldown over having another essay on top of it, with how good of a skill it is. I think it should definitely, Absolute Meteor should have essay and increase its CD to like 45 or 50 seconds. Another thing is like Sage's Memory. The fact that it's a 3-minute cooldown is kind of insane. It's like, it is 3 minutes, right? Let me just make sure.
I believe it is.
3.5.
3.5 minutes, man.
Even worse.
3.5 minutes just to get a little bit of what Succession Wizard feels like in Mainhand.
3.5 minutes to use bad skills.
Yes.
It's basically, you have 3.5 minutes to where you can dive with Meteor.
For anyone who
You should
doesn't
rephrase-
know what
You should
Sage's
rephrase
Memory
this.
does,
Its cooldown is 3.5 minutes. It doesn't last 3.5 minutes.
for anyone who
in
doesn't know
Mainhand.
Sage's Memory, just for context, Sage's Memory allows Awakening Wizard to insta-cast all of their main hand skills. It doesn't affect Awakening, but it makes all of our main hand skills
Well, it
very,
makes your
very quick.
teleport faster, but
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, keep going,
I mean,
Candice.
Yeah, and so like it feels like Mainhand on Wizard has just been left alone for so long. They've barely made changes to it, you know? Besides nerfing the downspecking of skills. Stuff like Concentrated Magic Arrow. Have you ever seen people use
Nope,
that skill?
doesn't
Ever?
exist.
I actually do use it very rarely, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it's such bad filler. Like it skills like Concentrated Magic Arrow, like it would be good in 1v1s if it had a frontal guard, if it had anything, if it moved faster. It's a super slow projectile that stiffs. Stuff like lightning, like residual lightning. If you're gonna use residual lightning, you are hard stuck in an animation. There's no canceling it, and it's unprotected. And then stuff like what is it? Like Blizzard. Blizzard, now that it doesn't have a slow, it barely does any damage at all. It's basically a useless skill.
It has
The
split
only
damage
other
from like
thing-
6 years ago.
Exactly. And then like Earthquake. I remember when they removed multi-hit CCs from Earthquake. They removed the multi-hits, and then they gave Striker the, what is it? First hit and last hit on what's the skill called? Combat, you know what skill I'm talking about.
Battle cry.
Battle Cry, yeah. Like, I actually don't understand that at all. And then on top of that, and then also like how useless Earth's response is now, the fact that it doesn't have a protection. It's just, it feels like these skills not being protected just hurts them so badly. If they had protections, it would make them a little bit better. And then stuff like Sage's Memories needs to get lower CDs. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, a lot of that made sense. Cosini, do you want to go?
Yeah, I was kind of gonna say a similar thing. The staff skills now do actually 0 damage. Another part that was nice about downranking them was they gave. It was very small, but you got extra damage for having mana. I don't really know how much that mattered, but with running the mana set, it probably did something. I do actually use Frigid Fog. Like, I freeze people more often than you'd think, but it's
yeah.
like they take less damage when they're frozen, so it's still not the best, but at least it's something. But other than that, like, you just don't press them anymore. Like, I still throw them out of habit, and it gets me killed. Expecting it to kill someone that's low, but instead I just get sniped. It's just, it's frustrating. And I put this in here, but I said it earlier. I do wish we could elementalization from staff as well, because
Yeah.
you could use it to cancel any of the skills, right? So you're not stuck in animation.
So is there anything you'd want to see like change specifically, or just kind of
I
basically
don't
what
know.
Candice
'Cause
said?
I haven't really sat down and thought about the individual skills, but I do think putting protections on some of them would help. Like Earth's response is kind of cool. If it had super armor, like you could actually use it. Like obviously they're not gonna buff the distance to be like successions, but like why would you ever press it right now? It does no damage and the float is bad anyway, and you're just gonna die. And I'm also sad that they took away that stiff that he was talking about too on Earthquake. I use that shit all the time.
Yep, same.
It's bad. I took it off my health bar. Like there's no reason to have it now.
It's just the SA rotate now.
Yeah. I
Well,
guess
I mean,
the
it's not
only
even a good
benefit,
SA rotate either.
the only benefit that there is now to Frigid Fog and stuff is that you get the damage reduction because I don't
Wait,
think
Earthquake
before
still
you had it in
stiffs?
staff.
Wait, what are you talking about? Doesn't
You know,
Earthquake?
it had-
stiffed
it-
every
it had
tick
free tick.
before.
Yeah,
It's
it was
every
every
tick stiff, and it doesn't anymore.
Oh, you
That's
mean
really
like
bad.
it's just first hit now? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
for sit.
But I don't think before the rework to SA reduction that you had it in staff. So you did blow up in staff,
Yeah,
and you die the same.
and I mean, you
speed
still
now.
do. You still do
Yeah,
blow
You
up.
still do, but it's at least damage reduction now. But other than that, like yeah, it's just a mess overall. I do like a lot of Candice's ideas though.
I can talk about it next. I mean, so like I said before, my headcanon is PA didn't change or address the weird down leveling thing because they knew it was bad and they wanted to let us have something because they just didn't want to like look at it. But clearly they care for some reason. So since they kind of, to me, I've never really complained or mentioned Mainhand just because we had that. I'm like, okay, at least we have something. But now that they've kind of like changed it to how it should be, it's kind of like, okay, well, they clearly know. They know what's going on with Mainhand. So I think that kind of just opened the Pandora's box for me, which is why I put this question here. And honestly, I think really, so when I look at when I was thinking about this topic, I look at other classes, right? And I look at what other classes main hands do for them. And it's usually one of two things. It's never the whole package. Other Awakening classes main hands, they are either useful for catches and re-CCs, or they're useful for damage. It's usually not both. I'm not going to say it's never
Also
both
movement.
because
It's
I
also
don't
for
know.
movement.
Yeah, it's movement as well for some. I'm not going to say like it's not a thing for it to do both because I'm not familiar enough with every class in this game. But I think it's a pretty good assumption that for most of the classes, it's probably one or the other. Now, I think Awakening's skills, until recently at least, their damage was fine. Like, I don't think we really needed supplemental damage from Mainhand or anything. So the thing I'd like to see for Mainhand personally is I'd like EA to focus a little bit more on the usefulness of the skills as like catching people with like stiffs or stuns, or useful for like re-CCs. And that's kind of honestly way back in my day, right? Back when I used to play early on, you would actually see Mainhand used a decent amount in PvP, not because of the damage, but because of the CCs some of the skills had, and you would see, you know, like I remember really early on when I first started playing the class, one of the combos I learned from fucking Jackie Felix's videos back when he used to be, you know, really into YouTube and stuff, was you would use multiple magic arrows to swap main hand, do a dagger stab into a earth response as a re-CC if people
I
had like
remember
a
that.
lot of knockdown resists. And I thought that was really fun to do, to have like this kind of cool weaving your stances thing to get a re-CC and then finish your combo off. And now it's just not like, it's super not worth doing because of how quick everyone's moving around and how much, you know, protection there is. It's just too risky to do that, right? Like, I think we could do with some more protections on our main hand skills. I don't think you need to boost the damage. I don't think we need the damage from main hand, but I'd like to see main hand's use kind of get a little more love on the CC department and making more useful CCs. There are some that do exist, which I do catch people with quite often, like what Cosini said about Frigid Fog. I don't know what it is about Frigid Fog,
I
but
just don't expect it.
people
Yeah.
just get hit by it left and right all the time. I don't get it, but it does really well. Earthquake, I used to use all the time as a catch as well. I still try to use it. But the multi-tick thing was really nice, and then taking that away kind of sucked. But even on the first hit, it can still sometimes catch people. But yeah, I just like to see them double down on that. And then regarding Meteor, are like, we have our three big iconic skills in Mainhand, right? We have Meteor, Earthquake, and Blizzard. Meteor, I agree with what you guys said earlier. Honestly, no one is using Absolute Meteor. Anyone who uses Absolute Meteor as an Awakening Wizard is actively throwing. So just give Absolute Meteor the super armor and give it a longer cooldown. Honestly, just do that. I don't think anyone ever really cares about Absolute Meteor in PvP at all. I think that needs to be done as well. I think Blizzard needs to see a little bit of a mini rework, because the whole purpose of Blizzard was to have this like basically wall of a slow that people just didn't want to get involved with because of how detrimental it was to like fighting. They just didn't want to mess with it. So like be this wall of like, hey, if you want to pass through this, you're gonna be in for a little bit of a rough situation. That doesn't happen anymore because slows are removed. So I think Blizzard needs to be looked at, and either the damage needs to go up, or I mean, honestly, the only thing I can think is damage on, like, realistically, like, because that's like the only thing it's gonna do at this point.
So, I mean, what you
And
could
then-
do is you could put an AP shred on it. Like
Yeah,
with a six
Put,
vision domain.
put other debuffs on it. That would be a good idea too. Give it like a DP shred, an AP shred, something. Maybe block shred too. I don't know. Something. It needs something else, because all they did was remove something from the skill and didn't give it anything back. That's the problem with Blizzard, in my opinion. And then Earthquake, I think Earthquake's still okay. It's definitely kind of sucks that we lost the multi-hit stiff. I'd like that back personally. I don't think that was too offensive to have on the skill, because even with the multi-hit stiff, I didn't really catch people an insane amount with it. I don't think it's any more broken than a shy bongo. Like, I don't like those changes. But yeah, that's what I think about Mainhand. But yeah, combat. What about you? What do you think about Mainhand right now?
I'm not too sure if I have like a lot of input on this. I'm gonna be real. My
That's fine.
BDO caster career has mainly been I double TP, press 1, 2, 3, 4, and I've made it here. So,
Crazy.
I think my biggest issue with Mainhand is it just doesn't really seem to flow right to me. Like other classes just seem to have this flow between pre-awakening and awakening, and it feels like for Wizard, it's just so clunky to me. Like I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's because the specs are just so different that it just doesn't feel like they work out. Like main hand is primarily range, so like I will like obviously take my staff out and like do range damage when I have the opportunity, to where I know for like the next 10 seconds this guy isn't gonna watch me charge up a fireball explosion. Like I'll do that like occasionally, but it just feels like they're just they don't complement each other. There is nothing that like I'm going to go from Cataclysm and then do this from pre-awakening. Like that's never gonna happen unless I've entirely burned my kit and I need a frigid. Like that's the only reason I'd ever do that. I think I'd just like to see a lot of the skills just be sped up, some cooldown reductions, and like probably some protections. Like I don't really know what the best way for that to be fixed. Like I have to agree that the fact I feel like classes are too protected now. Like doing like the cool like pre-awakening combos just don't really matter as much anymore. Um I feel like especially now, like if you're going for a combo, like you might as well just like grab Lava Pool, Flames Calling, into Hellfire Bolide and like everything else, because it's more reliant, and then you're going to be protected for a longer time. Uh, I feel like that's really my only like real opinion on Mainhand, in its current state.
All
To
right.
speak a little bit
Now
more
I can
on
cook
the,
on this. I can cook on my ideas with Mainhand.
what you gonna say, Piag?
But like that's because I've thought about every single tiny aspect of this class for entirely too long and have gone a little bit insane seeing them none of them happen. But first of all, I would put a forward guard on multiple magic arrows. It has no CC. It doesn't even have down attack. Did you guys know that absolute multiple magic arrows did not have a down attack? It doesn't.
I love pointing out the negative accuracy multiplier on that skill too.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's not the case anymore, but I don't really think it matters because everybody has 20% accuracy right now. You know, fuck it. That was pretty funny though. Like minus, what was it? Minus 5%?
It's 1%.
That
I'm
was
pretty sure.
no, I think that's Lightning Spear. I'm pretty sure Lightning Spear had minus 1%, and then MMA has no, no, not the point. Anyways, so yeah, put a forward guard on that skill. I actually do use MMA relatively frequently as a staff cancel. Because what I do is I would cancel into it and then use mana absorb. And the reason I do that is it's actually faster to hotkey cancel mana absorb with uh instead of just hotkeying mana absorb itself to do MMA and then spacebar. I don't know why. It's just like a really small frame difference that's actually faster to do MMA spacebar to cast mana absorb than just hotkeying it. It's weird. But yeah, just put a forward guard on MMA. That would be fine. Concentrated Magical Arrow is a dog shit skill. It's a literal nothing burger skill. Doesn't exist. No one uses it. No one has ever used it. Even in 2017, I didn't use it. It sucked. Still sucks. So what I would do, first of all, remove its stupid windup. Second of all, buff its damage by about 16 times, because currently it does none. Third of all, make it a forward guard on windup, or like forward guard until the attack goes out kind of skill, and make it a knockdown. So it's like actually useful, right? And I think probably increases cooldown a little bit to like 6 seconds or something, so you don't have this free protected 3-second knockdown. That'd be probably kind of stupid. But that's it. I would do that skill. Currently, it sucks, useless. I literally lock it. Fireball, like just normal fireball, remove the windup. I don't need to charge it to do slightly more damage. That's fucking stupid. I should just be able to do SLB and throw it immediately. It should just be sent instantly. I think it was Cosini who mentioned the fireball sustaining buff shouldn't exist. I should just be able to do shift to left click my staff, throw a fireball explosion. Don't add a protection, don't do anything, just make it instant like it is on Succession via shift to left click. The sustaining buff doesn't need to exist. It's stupid. Meteor, I echo everything everyone said. Make it a shorter cooldown with the super armor, and that's it. That's all you need to do. That's fine. It doesn't do Meteor does not do damage. You don't kill people with Meteor. If you're killing people with Meteor, you're getting kill steals. A lightning chain exists, and I would probably put like a fucking longer duration on the slow it applies with all the lightning skills, make the duration of the slow longer. Is that it? Lightning storm, just make it faster, please. Make it faster. Maybe put a forward guard and remove the stiff, I guess, if you want to put a forward guard on it. But make it faster. Lightning, just delete the skill. Lightning is fucking nothing. Doesn't exist. Like, maybe it's a fast catch on Succession, but then just make it a Succession skill. I don't care about Lightning. Residual, make it faster. Give it a forward guard. Probably remove the bound, I guess, because you have knockdowns for ranged CCs. Freeze. I don't know what to do with freeze. I'm just gonna ignore that skill. Frigid Fog, don't touch it. Please don't touch Frigid Fog. I fucking love Frigid Fog. Like, best skill in the pre-awakening kit by far. Blizzard, like I said earlier, just put a minus AP debuff on it, and that's about it. Earthquake, give it back its stiffness, the tree tick stiff. Earth's response. I don't know if I want it to be longer and not have a float, or to be super armor and longer and have a float. Or hang on, wrong phrase. You know what I mean? Like longer float, longer no float, but super armor. I'd probably take the super armor and make it longer. Also, let us use Earth's response from Awakening. That would be pretty cool. I know it's a meme skill and we have Rain of Fire, but why did Dagger Stab ever exist?
It was
Like,
just
you
meant
could kill
for
people with
the
it.
older version of the game.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like
It used to
Dagger
be a
Stab-
crit buff.
Don't you hate on
Dagger
my
Stab
Dagger
has
Stab?
counter attack on it. That's how old it is.
I love that skill.
Yeah, Dagger Stab, like I think it was Blue Sky that mentioned like the MMA Dagger Stab float with the Earth's response kind of CC check. That was cool. Was a neat utility. Doesn't happen anymore because you are doing three.
I mean, Dagger
chain
Stab was
unconnected
like
skills.
that was our animation cancel in Mainhand. Like it would make
It was,
all of our
yeah.
skills go faster in
Yeah,
Mainhand.
it was useful for that, but now it isn't because, and also we have Rain of Fire. That honestly, I think Rain of Fire should have replaced like Concentrated Magical Arrow instead of Dagger Stab, and then they should have made Dagger Stab like a forward F in staff kind of thing. And it's like you move forward, and then like the Frozen Dagger from BDO Mobile on Succession Witch. Which
I
is,
mean,
like,
I
all the
know
elements
this isn't
list or
really
something.
relevant because Dagger Stab is basically completely non-existent now. But before Rain of Fire was a thing, something I would always say that made no sense with Dagger Stab is it has counterattack but no forward guard. So like, why would you ever use it into damage if you're just gonna get CC'd?
Yeah, that didn't. I don't know. Dagger Stab
It
is
was-
not
it was
something
just
you really
silly.
fix. Whatever. I will mod about a Rain of Fire a little bit. This should be a ranged skill. It should not be melee. It should be basically Prime Bolide, but a main hand skill. Just make it. It doesn't have a CC. Its damage is, it's fine. But like it should be ranged. Just make Rain of Fire. I'm actually raining fire on them. How about that? You know. Also, we can't cancel Rain of Fire at all. It has no interaction with the staff kit whatsoever. It can't even be canceled by Hellfire. It can't even be sped up by Sage's memory. It's just a shit skill. It's just bad. I mean, it's still better than Dagger Stab, but like still, it's bad. To bombs, because no one mentioned bombs. They're still staff skills. Trembling Thunder needs to be like good. It's currently too slow for the down smash application. I would just make it like kind of instant. Like I slam my staff on the ground and it does the Trembling Thunder and it does the down smash, maybe the bound. I would take away the bound because nobody wants bounds. You want a knockdown and then just put super armor for an SA down smash. But that's how I would do with that. Swift Earthquake is fine. Whatever. Mana
Fix the
Arrow.
gap on it.
Yeah, fix the gap on Swift Earthquake. You're right. Mana Arrow is a shit. It sucks. It's bad. Lightning Spear? Put a forward guard on it. Yeah. It's a forward guard now. I have no idea how to fix mana arrows. I would probably just make it something entirely different than what it is currently, because the mana drain doesn't work. I don't know if you guys knew that. It doesn't work. It doesn't drain the mana on the target you hit, even if you are literally melee range hitting them with the actual sphere that it creates. That's like the third of the.
I mean, I feel like resource drain in this game is something that they thought was a cool idea, and then there was
There was the one
class
time
that
where
got
like Suck
broken,
Mewa.
right?
Suck
Yeah.
Mewa was OP for like
Mewa
a
was like
bit.
actually able to effectively use that debuff, and they're like, "Wait, this is stupid. We're just gonna remove it."
Yeah,
So
and
like,
then it's
they just need to remove mana drain as a thing entirely. It
Well,
just shouldn't
honestly,
exist anymore.
I honestly think mana drain as a principal concept wouldn't be as bad if you hitting 0 mana while you're doing a skill didn't just cancel the skill you're doing. Like it's just bugged. It's literally just bugged. Like mana drain would be a much more fair mechanic if that were a thing that didn't happen. Like, oh, I lost all my mana, so my bullet is just gone. It says sorry, like not enough resources or whatever, even though I literally already spent the resources. It's like, but you have to spend them again, but you have 0 mana, so you can't do this anymore. Like that just doesn't make any sense. I'm convinced it's a bug. But yeah, if the principle is just gonna be mana drain doesn't exist, then fuck it, just make mana arrows literally anything else. Because currently it's just bad. It's just as bad at concentrating magical arrow. It's just shit. Sage's Light and Sage's Rage, I feel like are on a relatively balanced power proposition. Like it's an additional knockdown that's pretty useful. I mean, obviously it could do more damage. They could make the burn damage on Sage's Rage not 15. It's 15 damage, by the way. Make that like 150 maybe. Something that's not literally 15 burn
I
damage.
didn't even know it was only 15. Holy shit.
I'm gonna be
15
honest. I
burn
thought it
damage.
was the same as just like Fireball. I thought it was exactly the same. I just assumed.
Yeah, no, it's 15, which was also Fireball, by the way. They're both 15. They both suck in that regard. To make that like an actually reasonable dot, maybe literally Lava Field is better than that. Like, bruh. But yeah, no, there's a lot of really small things. I guess you can just clip everything I just said and say, yeah, ship it. You know what I mean? Because I rented off like bullet point by bullet point. And I just have all this in my head, by the way. I'm just thinking about it. Like, all this shit just pisses me off. Fix the staff kit because it's terrible. Add 4 guards to the skills I said. Add protections. Make the CCs actually not terrible. Like if you're gonna have residual be a CC, at least make it a knockdown because that's just slow as hell. It's like I'm like, oh, I'm going to cast residual lightning in approximately 7 years from now. Ah, I'm casting it. Except by the time I raised my staff in the air to cast it, I died instantly. Like, it's just bad. Anyway, I'm gonna stop molding. That was just basically me molding.
I mean, yeah, so long story short, P8, please look at Mainhand more. You clearly know it was a problem. You clearly know something was going on with it. You really just need to look deeper into it than just like fixing this oversight and then calling it good.
I can't wait for them to nerf Frigid Fog and not touch anything else. It's gonna
I
be so
know, right?
good, guys.
That's all they're gonna do. It fucking
Alright.
annoys me, man.
So up next, this topic's again a little bit more of one of the specific ones, and this is because this is a really common question that's been asked recently. And I know a lot of people have a lot of very strong feelings about this.
It's bad. It's just
but
bad.
what do you think of the new skill, Cascade of Water, and what would you like changed about it, if anything? So again, I'm gonna go a little bit of an overview, just in case anyone who's watching isn't really super familiar with the class or what skills are. We used to have a skill called Retardando, which was basically all it did was slow by 50%. It used to be higher, but they lowered it, I think.
No,
but
they never nerfed it. They
it was
just
always
removed
50.
it. It was always 50.
But yeah, it used to slow by 50%. That skill, I mentioned this earlier, and some of the other guys in here mentioned it earlier as well. That skill was like the skill that made certain matchups playable, because you would just slow them by 50% and they would suddenly be on your level, like on your playing field of like movement. Almost, usually not even like even, but it would be close enough to where at least it was like a little more viable to actually chase them down and fight them and keep up with them. They removed that skill because they felt like, because recently they did the change where slows are now capped at 20%. So obviously, honestly, I would have been offended if they just left Retardando as it was with the 20% cap, because that skill would have just been nothing. It's like, I slow them by 20%, okay. All of my other skills that slow do that anyways, so why do I need a specific
Yeah, if
skill
they were
for
gonna
it?
keep it that way, at least put a forward guard on it. Like,
But anyways, they did what I think was probably maybe not the best, like, they could have reworked the skill or something, but I think something massively needed to change with the skill, even if it is a new skill. And I think a new skill is a fine way to go with it. However, we got this new skill, Cascade of Water. And for those of you who don't know, Cascade of Water is basically...
actually, it's Torrential Cascade.
yeah, sorry, Torrential Cascade.
Not that anyone cares.
But yeah, so this new skill is essentially another water sphere. It's just a ranged ball of water you throw that does some damage and then puts a 20% slow on them, which again, the slow is kind of whatever. And it's unprotected. It's slow. It has no interaction with the rest of your kit in terms of flowing. And it's just. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll keep going because I kind of just went from an overview straight into what I think of this skill. But basically, this skill is so bad, like in every aspect. Like whenever I think of a skill is only good if it has at least one thing it's useful for, right? Does it? And BDO, the things that skills are useful for. Obviously, you can have multiple on one skill, but if it has at least one use, I'm kind of okay with its existence. It either needs to do damage, it needs to debuff them somehow, or it needs to CC them, or it needs to give you protection. It needs to do at least one of those 4 things for the skill to be useful. This skill does none of that. The only thing this skill had a chance of doing is damage. And the reason I say that is because if you look at the multiplier for the damage, I'm looking at it right now, it's 5,040 times 2. And you compare that to Magma Bomb, which Magma Bomb is another skill we have that hits extremely hard, especially if people are on the floor. Magma Bomb does 50, I'm just going to round it, it does 5,700 times 2. So the damage is a little lower than Magma Bomb, but the damage Torrential Cascade does is insanely low, and that's because the damage reduction is like 20% higher in PvP on Torrential Cascade for some reason. So the skill ends up doing no damage. The only thing the skill does, really, is slow them, and the slow isn't anything unique because all of your other skills are more protected, come out faster, are more reliable, and slow the same amount. This skill is just horrible. Across the board. Like,
Yeah, it's just bad.
I really think they need to look at this skill again and just take it back to the drawing board because it's just bad. Like, what would my recommendations be to make it better? I think, honestly, make it forward guard and give it more damage. Just do those 2 things. Like, I don't want to mention Witch's version of the skill because Witch has a version of the skill too. But Witch's version of a skill is like having a Swiss Army knife that has all the tools out at the same time. It's insane. I don't get it. But I'm not going to mention that because I want to keep it on topic. It needs, I think, bare minimum. Give it forward guard, give it meaningful damage, and I think it would be in a good state. That's all it really needs. But something needs to be done. This skill it's almost like the dagger stab of Awakening. Like, I just don't understand what this skill is and why it exists.
Hey, at least
So-
Stop has a CC.
I mean, yeah, yeah, that's true. Now, I have a much broader, grander idea, and I think you missed the biggest problem with the skill, quite honestly, Blue Sky. I think you have greatly overestimated, or underestimated, rather, how bad this skill is. So everything you just said applies, all right? Everything you just said is totally true and real, literally, like, Twitch fucking... Can I get a, is this real chat? Anyways, the problem with this skill is it has no interaction at all whatsoever on any skill in the Awakening kit at all. It doesn't instant cast after anything. It doesn't even flow into anything. It doesn't flow out of anything. It doesn't flow into anything. It doesn't exist at all in the Awakening kit. They put this skill in the kit to justify Retardando not being there anymore. Instead, they needed to be like, yo, we still have this skill tooltip icon that is like in the game files. It needs to do something. And so they were like, water bubble. And that was it. This skill's biggest problem by far, without even touching on the fact it has no protection or CC or damage or like even a down smash, is that it does not flow at all in the kit. This skill is literally worse than Water Sphere. And I think Water Sphere is a really bad skill personally. Like the knockdown is the saving grace of Water Sphere. But anytime you're in PvP or you're running Core Bullet, so it's not protected, so you basically never use it. At least if you do, you're taking a gamble, which is like a 95% chance you get KD'd and die. to a 5% chance of you KD someone and they can't follow up on it because you don't have the mobility to use it at the range you can KD people with Water Sphere with. Anyways, Torrential Cascade, what I would do, very simple. First of all, give it more damage. Second of all, make it a forward guard. Third of all, make it instant cast after literally every skill in the kit. And then give it a down smash. That's it. Because I think it would be really cool if we could do Hellfire, like Hellfire Magma, Bolide, Torrential Cascade, Chilling Wave, and then Barrage of Water, maybe, I guess. Hopefully that actually hits the person. But currently it just doesn't interact with the kit at all. It's just shit. It's just bad. It's terrible. Like, I could not possibly express how bad this skill is. The only thing worse in the kit than it is probably Concentrated Magical Arrow, because that skill managed to be even slower than this. Anyways, again, I'm done mauling.
You're good. Cosini, you wanna?
Yeah, sure. So I have had this locked since the first day because I tried to PvP. I tried to PvP and I kept trying to shift Q to bubble people and I would just get
Oh my
myself
God.
killed. So I was like, fuck this, I'm locking it. And honestly, I have had no reason to unlock it. It's that bad. I don't even know what they do, but I guess they could, one thing that wasn't mentioned is maybe they could steal a skill from Mobile Awaken Wizard. The fucking bubble that you turn into and move around, that would be awesome. 'Cause
Dude.
it's basically a bubble that you spawn.
That would
and
be
does
so
nothing.
cool. That
Yeah,
would be
and
so,
then
and
that-
it would be a new movement skill, a
Yep,
grand
and that would
paradigm
give
for
us
Wizard.
mobility. Because I mean, we don't, I guess, need another damage skill if our skills got buffed, but yeah, that's my idea. I don't think that'll happen though. That's big copium.
That water skill, for anyone who doesn't know what he's talking about, I guess since he brought it up, there's a skill on BDO Mobile where Wizard basically just, it's like Hestilidum, or like it's just an insane dash that does damage the entire time you're dashing, and you just basically turn into a sphere of water and like dash around in it. It's kind of
Like,
cool.
It
Cool
looking,
looks
but
so cool. It looks so cool.
It is really cool. I think honestly they should do that for just like PR reasons because they're gonna like announce the bosses, and so what they do, hear me out, is like they make that skill on Awakening Wizard on PC, and they have the like B-roll of a wizard fighting a boss, and he like uses that skill to dodge a massive AOE, and they're like, "Holy shit! Look at the wizard! He just dodged that AOE with his new skill." It's like that would get so many people to play Awakening Wizard 5-head, biggest play, literally.
all right, Candice, what do you think?
I mean, the skill is extremely useless. I barely used Retardando beforehand anyways. I didn't really like using that skill that much, but one of the saving graces of it is that you could at least use it while you were like moving. You weren't animation stuck into it. And that just absolutely destroys Torrential Cascade. The fact that you're animation stuck completely is just probably the worst thing for me about it. On top of doing like no damage, no CC, everything. I don't know. I think they should have just kept Retardando at that point. I would have rather kept it.
Same.
Yeah, it's just cooked. The skill is just bad. There's no way to elaborate further on it.
Bubbling Zerkers and Mooses was the best thing.
That was really funny. You'd see the Zerker, he'd just jump in the air and it'd be like slow motion because he just and then he just slowly falls. It was really funny. Also, just as like a meme, we can no longer bubble Karanda. It's fucking over, bro.
Yeah.
I miss having
Uh,
that huge ass bubble on Karanda. That was so funny.
What about you, Combat? What would you like to see done to this skill, if anything?
GG Combat AFK.
Combat
Yeah.
Oh,
AFK.
I tried to unmute.
Briefing? Alright.
That's my bad. That's my bad.
No, you're good.
I don't really know. I'm gonna be real. When I saw this skill and I tested it out, I kind of got like secondhand embarrassment that this even got put into the game, into our kit. Like it is so slow. It is so useless. I'm being honest. I think people's HP pots heal over the damage that comes out from that skill.
Yes.
That's how little it is. I'm be real. Making it like that BDO mobile, like skill, like that sounds. I want that. Like I don't care about anything else. I want to see that happen to that skill, because there really isn't an effective way to like change it. As someone like who pretty much like I hard abused Redondo in all forms of
Oh
like
yeah, same,
small scale
absolutely.
content. Like I'm be real, like I don't know if I would have finished top 100 last season without Redondo. Like that skill, like I was able to counter so many classes, and I would at least take them out of fights in AOS. Simply because, like I knew when to use it. Like obviously, like you have to know other classes' kits, but like that just like comes with like just like overall game knowledge. But Redondo was so strong in AOS.
If you were fighting an Awakening Berserker and you landed, you had like a 1 in 6 chance to win. If you didn't, it was just over instantly. It didn't even matter. Like if the Zerker, Awakening Zerker, even I'm not even talking about Succession. If the Awakening Zerker had hands, you were just dead. It didn't matter. It was just over. And that gave you a fighting chance that we don't have anymore. So it's just an insta L.
All right. So for anyone who's wondering about that skill and has been asking me and other people about it, there you go. That's what we think. The next topic is a bit of a all-encompassing kind of semi-summary kind of topic. This kind of just opens the floor up to anyone in here who just kind of wants to say anything else, really. Feedback-wise about the class. The topic is there anything else you would like to see changed that hasn't already been discussed to put the class in a more healthy state? Specifically PvP-wise, I know a lot, but we were essentially haven't really mentioned PvE at all. That's not really the purpose of this discussion. But yeah, is there anything else
I have one. I have a big one.
that we haven't discussed? So I'll just start us off. Honestly, I feel like I kind of got everything off my chest for the most part. I mean, that's mostly because I was the one who made these topics, so I kind of already thought of everything I wanted to talk about and kind of just explained what I thought. I guess if I had to say something, there is one thing that hasn't been discussed, and it's a little bit controversial because every time I mention it, I always get a lot of like, "What the fuck are you talking about? Why?" kind of thing, but I think our grab needs to be looked at a little bit. I don't think it's horribly weak, but I just feel like it needs a buff somewhere. In my opinion, I think what I've always told people when they ask me about the grab, I feel like it needs one of two things. It doesn't need both, because again, I don't think the class needs to be like an insane grab class like other classes are. But I would either one like to see the startup animation just be faster. It should just come out quicker. Or I think it would be cool for it to make it like a range grab. With the same speed, it can still be slow. Just make it a range grab. Like I remember someone said this idea to me a while ago, and I was like, "Oh, that's an awesome idea, way to like implement it as a range grab." What if you just had your summon grab them?
Yeah,
Like,
it's
well,
like
what if you just command, Arn or Marge just grabs them for you and throws them on the ground?
Out of the ground and picks them up. That would be fucking awesome. Yeah.
That would be sick. But that's kind of like just that's really the only thing I would say that hasn't been discussed is.
Have any of you guys seen
grab.
Guilty Gear? You know what Guilty Gear is?
Yeah.
Do you know Potemkin?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just have Marg do Potemkin Buster and that's the grab. That would be so fucking cool.
Yeah. But yeah, combat. Do you have anything else that you'd want to talk about related to you know, changes that we haven't talked about already?
Yeah. See, I think a lot of the bigger issues that I think are fundamentally wrong with the class and why the class isn't receiving the kind of care it needs is like shout out Huntler, but his propaganda that suck mage is terrible right now. Like needs to kind of be looked at just a little bit. It's obviously not an S tier class, but by no means is Succession Caster like anywhere near like being a terrible class right now. And I think the buffs that we require would inherently make that class, like that spec of our class, much stronger than it needs to be. Like, I think we should have 25% damage reduction SA, but then that's also inherently buffing Succession Caster, which it doesn't need the 25% damage reduction. I think we should just have an inherent DR passive, but that's kind of difficult to just bring towards Awakening without doing something to skill changes that they've clearly tried to get rid of. It would have to be like a passive, and like, I mean, while we do have like spec specific passives like on caster and in different areas, I just don't feel like they'd be able to do it correctly. And I know, one sec. Oh, and crit rate on pets. Like, please, just for the love of God, like the just make the critical hit rate on pets 50% on like everything. Like, that shouldn't even be a thing. Like, make it
Just make it
50% or
100%.
100%. Like,
Make it 100.
like
Dude.
there was no reason that like I need to like build up crit chance and like and like focus on like e-buff damage and like when I have certain buffs up to be able to like maximize like full damage. Like, that should just 100% like be like it should just be 100% crit rate. Like, there's no need for that.
Cool. Candice, you wanna talk about anything else?
I mean, honestly, the only thing I could think of that hasn't already been mentioned really was like maybe doing like awakening only passes, but I kind of agree with Combat is I don't think they'd do it correctly. But I mean, if we go back to like how the class was even just a few months ago, the only thing that it really needs is like its damage back, in my opinion.
Right. Sure. Cosini, what about you?
Okay, so I have a couple things. One thing I want is I don't know if they should do Barrage or they should do Ball-Eyed, but one of them should get a shorter cooldown. This is less important in PvP, but especially for grinding, it's awful. Like, but they don't sync with anything. And the other one is the pets. Like, I don't know like how easy it is to test, but I'm pretty sure this is still the case. The pets don't get bonus spec damage. Like if you pop it.
Oh, that's actually very easy to get. Very easy to test. You do it with Lava
Yeah.
Field, and you see that Lava Field does
If
no
you-
damage because Lava Field is summon damage.
So like running corrupted and stuff, it feels less valuable than if it actually worked correctly. That's definitely a big nerf on our damage that should be fixed. It doesn't have any reason to work like that. Those are the two big things I wanted to mention.
And what about you, Piag? Any other things?
Give me one moment. I'm like, I'd have to think about brain. No, I think a thing they did a while ago and then undid, and it was just kind of lazy. So hey, look at this. We have like our different summons do different things depending on which one is actually summoned. That was a novel idea that I think they could have actually elaborated on instead of just making them do the same thing as each other. What I would have preferred them to do is literally just do what Drac has and make it so like, okay, you have Mark out, you have an AP buff, you have Arn out, you have a DP buff, right? Or, better yet, you have it so that they change the functions of more than one skill when they're out. So like, let's say you have Marg out and Hellfire goes like a further distance, right? So like you charge up Hellfire and then you have Marg out and then it goes further. Or like Bolide gets a bigger AoE or Cataclysm. You know that thing that Mobile has where Cataclysm has like the second punch? Imagine if when you have Marg out, you actually get to do that second punch. Or on, Aquagil, it's like we have the big bubble, right? But that's just, I feel like that should just be Aquagil in general. But what I would do for Arn is, so you were suggesting, was it Combat or was it Candice? They were talking about like the big bubble skill for mobile where you like move around. I think that should be what Barrage of Water is when you have Arn out. Right? I think that makes more sense. And obviously if you want to cancel it and just do it on top of someone, you can like left click or something to cancel it sooner. But that would be what I would do. I would make the summons actually have a bearing on your kit when one or the other is summoned, and to that end, make the summons, like the skill to summon them, a instant thing. Make it so that, oh, I press F, I don't have to wait, it's just instant. It's just I do the thing. Like, I don't know if you can hear this, but I'm snapping my finger. It's like you snap your finger, and then you can instantly go into the next skill you're about to cast, instead of having to hard stop everything you're doing, go into this long animation, and then you get to do things. It should flow, right? It should actually be class mechanic you can take advantage of. Because I was really interested in the prospect of, like, let's say while grinding, oh, hey, I can, like, swap to Marg real quick and do more damage with, like, Bolite or whatever. And then, in theory, the summon animation would be fast enough that I could swap to Arn and then get that extra damage on, like, Chilling Wave or whatever. But that was just a concept that they didn't feel like putting enough effort into to make it actually bear fruit to be anything valuable. So they were just like, fuck it, they just do the same thing now, which I think was really lazy, and I would make that they actually do something different and make the summons faster. Or better yet, make the summons do damage. Make it like a little burst of damage around you when you use your summon and summon one. So that would add to like the DPS of you using the summon skill. But currently summons are just irrelevant. You summon them, and then you get their benefits, and there's no actual application of the summons being there. They don't matter. They should matter, but they don't. Right?
I mean, their existence matters, right? Because it buffs the skills, which you did say. But like, you want I get what you're saying. Like, I also think it would be cool for like the summons to do something unique. I think it's fine to have like the flows or like the special attacks or whatever that gets added on. I think that's all fine, but seeing it like change the skills more fundamentally in their behavior would be cool. Like, just keep everything they already do, just add more on top of it. That makes them like
add
both
more
unique.
identity to one or the other, or both, preferably.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. All right, so we have one more topic left before we wrap up. So this topic is mainly because I kind of had a feeling most of this podcast, or this discussion rather, would be kind of like a doom and, well, not so much of a doom and gloom, but a lot of like balding and complaining,
Yeah,
and trying to
I
like
think that's fair.
get it out there. So I kind of wanted to get something a little more positive to at least end it on like a little more of a, well, like friendly note, I guess. But basically this last question is just, again, a question I get a lot, and it's just about playing the class in general. What would you say the most important thing to learn is in order to play Awakening Wizard well, and why is that important? It's just kind of like a topic to just kind of give people advice if they're trying to figure a class out and like figure out how to do better, especially with all the changes that have been kind of destroying it recently. But for me personally, I think the most important thing to learn in order to play this class is probably staying protected. It's like, it's more important than it's ever been. Like, that's always been one of my top things. I don't think it's ever been the top. Usually the top thing for me is tell people how to learn to position better. But now, with how much easier it is to die with all the changes recently, like, getting on the floor is so much of a death sentence now compared to how like it used to be. So I would say just learn how to stay protected, figure out your protected rotations. There's 1,000,001 guides out there. I have one. Cosini has one. You know, you can figure out how to linger your super armors and stay protected. I think that's the most important. Piag, what about you? What do you think is the most important thing to learn?
I think one thing, and this is just kind of my perspective from the perspective of making documentation for the class, is there's a lot of really tiny things you have to know about. Otherwise, you're going to shoot yourself in the foot without even knowing you did it. An example of that, which again, this is one of the main motivations I would say that I kind of didn't mention regarding why I think speed spell shouldn't even fucking exist. If you use speed spell when you have Z buff up, it doesn't do anything. The buff just gets erased. It's just gone. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't apply. Same thing with the E buff. If you do it while the BSR is up, you don't get the casting speed bonus. It just doesn't happen. Even if there's 1 second left on Z buff and you cast speed spell or elemental Batis or whatever it's called, fucking control madness, you don't get the casting speed buff. It just doesn't apply. Like you just get cucked. You're just it's just gone. Those tiny things you need to understand are super important because you're gonna be like, oh boy, I can't wait to engage this ball. And oh well, you had 1 second of BSR and cast your speed spell, and then it ended. So well, you can't play your class anymore because you don't have speed spell up. That matters so much more than it should, and it annoys the piss out of me. And it'd be like another example would be the cooldown of your support skills is like, well, it's like you had mentioned the cooldown of what's it called, fucking magical shield and speed spell being distinct. You need to pay attention to that, right? You need to be like conscious of when you are casting. Like if you know your shot caller is telling you, oh hey, just fucking W check the enemy ball and dive into them. Maybe you shouldn't cast magical shield because you're not going to live long enough regardless as to whether or not you cast magical shield. And so it's like you have to have that situational awareness as to your respective long cooldowns and like mind your positioning when you're using arc wizardry teleport and all these tiny things that just amount to a really big impact to the overall knowledge of the class. Because if you don't know those things, you're just going to fail. That's just what's gonna happen, right? And positioning is obviously part of that, but I think that's a big thing.
Well, you, Candice. I know you're running out of time because you gotta go soon, so we'll get to you on this last topic.
I mean, when it comes to like large scale and small scale, in my opinion, and that's always been my opinion, especially since I'm not really a main ball player. I'm more of like a flex side, like a side person. In like large scale, positioning and timing has always been like my number one thing. You need to know when to go in and where you should be. Like, if you're mispositioned in a main ball, you're gonna get picked off so easily. If you go in at the wrong time, you're gonna die and do nothing. Even if it's like you go in right when like your caller says to go in, like you're still just you're gonna go in, you're gonna drop a couple skills, and you're gonna insta die most of the time. But like when it comes to large scale and like small scale, it's an extremely easy kit to learn at like a base level. It's super easy to get in there, drop your damage. But when it comes to like 1v1s and stuff like that, it gets a lot harder because you're at such a disadvantage. When it comes to 1v1s though, like you have to know people's playstyles and when you can punish them. That's like one of the biggest things. You're at such a disadvantage kit wise versus not like I'd say probably 80% of the classes. There's a few classes that like our kit is significantly better than. If you were to talk like specifically in your kit, not dealing with damage, not dealing with like mobility and shit like that. If you're going against a non-grab class, you can just outtrade them most of the time if our damage was balanced around how our kit works. Other than that, I mean, another really good thing to learn in 1v1 is mouse moving.
Yeah.
Because that'll be the one thing that throws
Apologies.
people off.
Cosini, what about you? What's the
I was
one
gonna
thing that
say
you would say is important?
something very similar, which was positioning, basically what he went over. It like as he said, the kit is very simple. Like you could probably spend an hour in BA and you would know what your skills do, but being able to apply them in a node war is hard. Like there are a lot of people that have tried to tag it when I was in Ventus and stuff, and other guilds too, and they always do bad and then they get upset and quit because they're like, oh, it was so easy. But it's not. Like you have to spend a
Yeah.
lot of time learning
Just
where to
past
TP.
PA, idiot.
Yeah, you just have to learn where to PA. Because a lot of people too, and this is happening in Soap as well, they will PA way too early and then we'll have the debuff, and then when they actually need it, you don't have it because you're debuffed, and then you die. So that's awesome.
Yep.
But yeah, I would say positioning and not wasting PA, and also don't try to bomb heal in the middle of all the enemies because you'll die for that.
Yeah, that's more of like a recovery thing when your ball is like
Yeah.
going back from a push and pull kind of thing.
Those would be the three big things for large scale, I would say.
And what about you, Combat? What do you think's the important thing to tell anyone who's in class?
Yeah, this is a really good question. I did actually. I thought about it a little bit. I think some of the things that like have already been mentioned are important. Like I think positioning is a huge thing. Like understanding like when you need to be engaging, where you should be engaging, how far you need to be engaging. I think that's more so just all positional factors and experience. Um, I wouldn't expect anyone to just hop on this class and instantly go 102 at Siege. Like, I just don't think that's possible. Like, there's just too many factors that get relied into it. And I think the next big thing would be teleport usage. Um, I feel like a lot of people use teleports. I feel like it's less common on PC, but I feel like a lot of people will teleport, but they don't actually move their camera while teleporting. So a good thing to know while teleporting is that the startup animation will lock your character into a position on on your screen and on their screen. But if you move during that time after the lockup position, you can still teleport anywhere you want, but on their screen and on your screen, your character will still be facing the direction of wherever the lock was. So that's a good way to kind of trip people up a little bit, especially those that don't have as much experience fighting casters. When they teleport, they might just follow your actual character model and where it's looking. It's another good thing when using mass TP is to last second before they right as the animation is locking, is to aim it in a different direction rather than where you're facing. Um, and one last thing that would be important to learn. I don't know, like I feel like we really covered the basis of it really well. Um, I mean, I could talk about large scale and like trying to bunker down in certain areas.
Yeah, I mean
Like there's
that's like a topic for like another time, but like yeah, I think you
That's much
got
more specific
yeah.
than the
We-
overarching theme.
yeah.
All right, well that basically wraps up all the questions, guys. I originally was going to open it up for questions from chat at the end, but we've been going a lot longer than I was hoping we would. So unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to be opening up for questions. I'm still going to be streaming afterwards, so if any of you guys want to stick around and ask me questions, and I'm sure some of the guys in here might be hanging out in chat too. So if you have any questions, I'm sure we would be happy to answer it and talk with you if you have anything else that you'd wanted to know. But we're gonna go ahead and wrap up here. So we're just gonna go around the room one more time. Shout yourselves out, guys. Like if you have a YouTube channel or a Twitch or a Twitter or just like anywhere people can find you, if you have content or guides or any information, you're welcome to share it. But yeah, let's just go around the room, starting with combat.
Yeah. I guess for my name's Combat. Really, I don't really have any media that I've really posed to. I feel like the YouTube channel and like I've made a few montages before. Nothing is really up to date to the current standards. I'm a pretty heavy gatekeeper, so good luck.
Nah. Oh no.
All right, what about you, Cosini?
Yeah, I'm Cosini. I do have a YouTube. It's just Cosini. You could find it. Most of my content's old though. I don't have too much on the new stuff, but I'll probably cook something up eventually.
And Piag?
I don't know if you guys noticed, but I tend to talk a lot. I'm sorry about that. I'm very passionate about the class. I talk about it a lot. If you ever need information about it, I document and maintain the class guide for Witch and Wizard within the Witch and Wizard Discord. I know a lot of class Discords kind of have the air about them that they're all shit and you shouldn't use them. But personally, I have a lot of investment and a little bit of pride in the way that I have maintained the document for the class. So I am of the opinion, anyways, maybe you'll disagree, that the Wizard Discord is actually not shit. But that's because like I actually pay attention to what people say when they say it might be bad. I'm like, okay, but why? And then I fix it, right? So to that end, check out the Wizard Discord, maybe. I don't know.
And Candice?
Yeah, I got a YouTube channel. If you just search up Candice BDO, I've got a few old montages. It's the same as the other guys. They're not really up to date to current stuff. If you want something at least a little bit more recent, you can look up Zachary's channel. I've got a couple duotages with him as well.
And lastly, I'm Blue Sky 900. I'm probably the most up to date in terms of YouTube content for Awakening Wizard. I don't do many montages on my channel. It's definitely something I've kept in mind, but you'll find a lot of guides and stuff on my channel. I stream, which is what we're doing right now while we record this, over on twitch.tv/bluesky900. So if you guys are watching over on YouTube and you'd like to hop in and ask me some questions or just kind of see what goes on in my stream, you're welcome to hop in and give it a shot. But yeah, that basically wraps up the podcast, guys. I don't know. I definitely would like to do more of these. I don't know how often. I feel like this isn't going to be a super common thing. I think more than likely we'll do this again when more changes come out, if more changes come out, or maybe if we wait long enough and there's not big changes, maybe we can do one that's, instead of about feedback for the class, maybe more about like how to play the class or something, kind of like a group like guide almost between a bunch of the experienced wizards. Maybe we'll have some different faces in there, different voices, I don't know. But thank you for hanging out, guys. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.